Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into today's Words of Wisdom. Today's is for March 18th, and I quote, "Once you have developed a spiritual disposition, you must also strengthen your intellect and reasoning. Otherwise, you cannot protect yourself in the end. Your breakwater is highly likely to be broken, so you need to work on building your intellectual power and your power of reasoning from the laws of secret." Thank you, Master Okawa. All right, so in the Laws of Secret, Master Okawa is teaching us the spiritual aspect of our life. Why is it a secret? It's because you're not taught about this in schools or in traditional religions or in the newspaper or at your workplace. So it's a secret. It's a secret principle that's working upon us. Even though it's unseen, it's working upon each and every one of us. And simply put, Master said it in the preface and afterward, but it means that our life is being affected by spiritual entities. That's a secret of life. And if we're living in that kind of playground, that is like how the field is set. How do we then live a better life is, talked about in the Laws of Secret. And one thing is, Master is talking about defense, how to protect ourselves from being overly spiritual. What I mean by overly spiritual, it means like when spirituality gets out of hand, it's out of control. And you're not taking initiative of your own life anymore, but like these spiritual effects are taking over your decision-making abilities, or you're blaming everything on spirits, and you're not living, like I said earlier, you're not living a constructive, positive life based on your own decisions. So how do we protect ourselves from that? Master is saying that two qualities are necessary, which one is intellect and the other one is reasoning. Intellect is meaning you have knowledge, and not just spiritual knowledge, but worldly knowledge. It's important to know cases where if something occurs, if you do something, something will come as an effect. So you have to be able to see the causes and effects of things. Like you have to have a number of cases that you know as knowledge. So that's the intellect part. And then the reasoning is, I already kind of got into it, but being able to put together information to be able to see what will happen if you continue thinking like that. It's like a very rational mindset. Or also it's a power of being able to decipher what's right or wrong. So that is reasoning. And so why is this necessary to protect ourselves from being overly spiritually sensitive? It's because once we start entering the spiritual world, one thing is, sure, it's good to have guidance from your guardian spirit, even guiding spirits sometimes, but it's really hard to see whether it's actually a good spiritual entity that's possessing you or a bad spiritual entity that's possessing you. It's really hard. It's such a thin line. And usually, if objectively seen, it's kind of easy to see. But usually, if you try to look at it subjectively, a lot of the times, that decision, you make the wrong decision. You think that the bad spirit that's possessing you is actually good. So, in order to protect ourselves, we need to have a case study. We need to have a lot of knowledge, worldly knowledge, and also the power of reasoning. And to be able to do so, Master does recommend us reading the newspaper or watching the news because it's filled with cases of people making mistakes by committing crime without them even noticing. And by knowing these things, having these kind of knowledge, it'll protect you. And if you read the newspaper, it talks about a new bill that's passed, a new law that's being taken in place. If you study those things, you'll know what not to do too. But reading the news, it's got pros and cons because there's a lot of fake news going out these days. So it's important not to be swayed by the news, by the face value of what's written on the news either, because every news agencies has their agenda, and we're living in an interesting time where there's the three branches of power, right? But there's like a fourth branch that exists right now, which is the mass media. And even though it's not a governmental power, it definitely has the power to influence governance and politics. And so it's very scary to just look at it at face value. So what I recommend is reading Master Okawa's spiritual messages of like these different political leaders and things like that, because you'll get like a first-hand raw information of what these people are thinking without, you know, the bias of the news agencies. So, was it Mark Twain? He said that if you don't read the news, you're uninformed, but if you read the news, you're misinformed. So, which is better, uninformed or misinformed? The best is being informed. And in order to be able to do so, you do have to read the news, and also at the same time, make sure you have like a higher value judgment of it, which is Master Okawa's teachings, especially the laws of Messiah. It's a great way to be able to obtain media literacy, to not be deceived by the media, but being able to gather information. So, you know, this kind of like a worldly practice is also necessary for us to be able to balance out the right brain and the left brain. That is, Master called that the the modern day intellectual middle path. The modern day intellectual middle path is the right brain is more of the creative, spiritual side. The left brain, which one's which? And then the left brain is more of like the math, science, reasoning part. If I switch it around, I'm sorry. But it's important to balance both out in order to protect ourselves of not being overly spiritually sensitive, or not being too cold-hearted with just information and logic and being like an AI, not having emotion or compassion. You don't want to end up like that either. It's again, the middle path of both forms of the brain, both sides of the brain. All right, that would be about it for today. Thank you for tuning in, and hope to see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.